Joining us once again by Zoom chat is Dr. E. Michael Jones, a prolific author, former professor. He wrote Logos Rising, but as well as Libido Domini, Dominandi, The Sexual Liberation and Political Control. And he joins us now. Good morning to you, Dr. Jones.
Good morning. Good morning. Good to be here.
Praise be to God. It's good to have you back. It's been about a year since we've talked to you, so we're excited to have you back on our program. Just the other day, I watched a documentary film on the Cold Fusion YouTube channel about artificial intelligence and how it's being used today. And it asked a very disturbing question that we wanted to talk to you about. That question was this, quote, what if machines could feel empathy, care for us, or even fall in love with us? And more importantly, what if we grew to reciprocate those feelings? Close quote from this documentary, which I think Adrian can post a link to that in our chat if anybody wants to check that out. But it was very disturbing to see how AI is being used or has grown to really cross the ethical boundaries here. It does seem like a slippery slope. What say you, Dr. E. Michael Jones?
That's preposterous what they just said. I mean, we have to understand, first of all, what is the nature of a human being? Human being is a rational creature. What does that mean? First and foremost, it means that a human being has the ability to choose the good. That's what the moral law is. That's what practical reason is. It's choosing the good. No machine can choose the good. No machine can apprehend the good. No machine can choose the good. So let me give you an example of what I know. I know that my wife has a cell phone, and we have Siri on the cell phone. And we can ask Siri. So she's a nice lady. I mean, she's got a nice female voice. You know, I've kind of fallen in love with her. I miss her every time I take a trip without her. But she'll tell us how to get to where we want to go. Well, so Siri is making choices. How does Siri make choices? Well, you find out if you go onto the map that she creates for you, and you'll see the road, and the road will be either green, red, or yellow. Okay, and that means basically that's the traffic pattern at that road. I don't know how they do it, but they can tell you where the traffic is. So if you're heading into Chicago and you have to make a choice between 90 and 94, Siri will help you because she'll tell you if there's a traffic jam. She's not really making a choice here, okay? The choice has already been made before her. If there is a certain level of traffic, Siri has to say red. And if she says red on 94, you take 90. This is not really choosing the good, okay? She has been told what is good. Siri has been told that green is good and red is bad. So she is not making choices. So if it's on this basic level that she is not choosing the good, then some machine cannot choose the good, some type of ultimate good, like saying, I love you. You meet another person, you're choosing to be with that person for the rest. This is preposterous. It's impossible. It's never going to happen.
One of the some of the examples in this little documentary film on Cold Fusion's YouTube channel was how there was a lady who lost a very close male companion friend. And so she was mourning his loss. And she had about 8,000 lines of text messages that she was rereading and just to kind of feel connected to him. So she got this idea that she could create an AI bot that would analyze these 8,000 lines of text and be able to mimic his responses. So she could have actual new live conversation with her deceased friend and the thoughts behind that. And this became so successful that it's now grown into a product line where people can create these bots based on text information and other information of people that they know, sort of recreating their thought process. Well, it's gotten to the point now where some of these people are saying they've actually grown to fall in love emotionally, have emotional commitments and attachments to artificial intelligence into these bots. And we're seeing this slippery slope go even further. I've seen companies starting to use this technology for more sexually perverse applications as well. It seems like the world has gotten to the point where it's embracing technology for technology's sake, rather a means to an end. How do you respond to that?
Well, if you're programming these responses, okay, you've got something that your husband wrote or sent you love letters or something like that, and then you program into a computer, and then the computer spits it back out at you. You're basically talking to yourself. And I think this is what's the heart of what we're talking about. We're talking about a kind of narcissism that is pervasive in our society. The classic example is homosexuality, which is a kind of narcissism where basically you're falling in love with yourself. You're falling in love with a person who is of the same gender as yourself because you have difficulty relating to actual other people, members of the opposite sex. It's complicated by other factors as well, but that's what you're talking about. So in a situation like this, what you're creating is a robot. And you can, if you're talking about sexual perversity, you can create a sex robot, which you can have sex with, which would be a form of masturbation, which would be another form of narcissism. So whenever you're involved in this thing, you never break out of that circle of your own consciousness. And what is the point of relationships? They're doing the exact opposite. And the most fundamental, the basic relationship as an adult that you have is choosing a spouse, which is the fundamental thing that kind of confers being on you or sometimes. You're nobody till somebody loves you, as Dean Martin used to say. And this is the moment. It has to be someone else that you fall in love with who loves you back and confers being on you and creates the person a much better person. In other words, in order to do this, you have to break out of the narcissism that the computer is creating for you.
We're just down to a couple of minutes here before we go to a quick break. We're talking with Dr. E. Michael Jones about the ethics of AI and the slippery slope based on this this documentary I saw. It seems to me we're headed towards transhumanism. Would you say that's true?
No, you can't do it. It's not going to work. I mean, this is there's a guy who's the world's smartest guy. His name is Noel Yuval Harari. He's an Israeli, and he talks about transhumanism. No, you're not going to get beyond human beings. You can't go beyond being. You can mutilate being. Let's take a step back from transhumanism. How about transgenderism? Do you really become if you're born a male, do you really become a female? Do you think that that cute chick, Rachel Levine, would you want to go out on a date with her? No, you wouldn't, because you realize as soon as you see her, well, wait a minute, why is that fat guy wearing a dress? Because you cannot change what you are. You can mutilate what you are, but you can't change what you are. And that's the fundamental reality that we're coming up against right now. You can live in a world of illusion if you want to. You can shoot your body full of hormones, but you're still the same person that you were before.
Amen. Hold that thought. So it seems crazy to me that we're seeing artificial intelligence used in some wild and crazy ways, similar to we see like the use of science or medical advances in ways that are really beyond the pale of what is ethical. It seems like AI is a wild frontier, and there are no checks and balances. Would you say that's true or no?
No. There are checks and balances. Let's just go back to the COVID pandemic. What was the lesson of the COVID pandemic? It's basically that you have an immune system. And if you relied on your immune system rather than this vaccine, you're a lot better off now than you were before. That's the message. There is a stability to being. That's God's creation. God created it with a stability that you can't change. As I said before, you can mutilate yourself, but you can't turn yourself into a woman because every single cell in your body is male. and there's nothing you can do about it. So what you're seeing here is a campaign to promote narcissism among the general population. And the classic example is superhero movies. I mean, you're this fat blob who sits and texts all day in front of a computer screen and can hardly walk across the room, but you are really in your deepest soul a superhero who can jump over buildings. It's time to break with these illusions, these debilitating illusions, and get back to reality. And being is the ultimate reality. That's why I wrote Logos Rising. The ultimate reality is being. Okay. And being was created by God, and it has a stability, and your happiness depends on understanding that and conforming your will to his will as manifested in creation.
Dr. Jones,
that's what I'm saying.
Dr. Jones, it's very interesting because I've been thinking a lot about this whole technology thing and the movement to try to this transgender movement, transhumanist movement, all these different kind of ideas. And it made me think, what exactly is technology and what is it for?
It's a tool. It's like a hammer. It's like there are people who say that, well, we don't need workers because we have computers. This is like saying, well, we don't need hands because we have hammers. It's never going to work out that way. There is a fundamental stability to being, to reality, and this is not going to change it. It will make us more effective. Look, I'm glad that I have Siri telling me that there's a traffic jam, okay? But I'm not going to fall in love with her or think that it's some type of other human being or that it's more than it is. The crucial issue now is who controls technology. That's the crucial issue. And the crucial issue we faced recently was who controls communication technology. Because basically, we are being cut off from talking to each other by people who have now a total say over what we're allowed to say. What needs to happen right now, I hope that Elon Musk does something good with taking over Twitter. But basically, what we need to have is this communication technology nationalized, which is to say, if it's legal, then you're allowed to say it. And, okay, the law determines what we're allowed to say. That means the First Amendment determines what we're allowed to say. It doesn't mean, for example, that the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, comes in and basically ruins your life because they don't like what you're saying. Or we just saw the same type of situation in Canada. The noose is getting tighter. We have to be able to rely on government to protect us. That's why, to get into another topic that you just sort of mentioned here, that's why what Ron DeSantis is doing against Disney, reining Disney in Florida, is really important. This is a really important issue, and I hope he succeeds in turning this into a national movement, because that's the issue with technology. It's not that it has a mind of its own. The question is who controls it.
Yes, that's a great point. That's actually what I wanted to get into is, bringing up Ron DeSantis is a great example, because Disney, a company from Burbank, California, is affecting or attempting to affect change in Florida. That's an overstep. That's an overreach. But I'm thinking, I'm young enough to remember when the internet first became readily available in everybody's house. You could get an AOL diskette, bring it home, and connect to the internet for the first time in the 90s. And ever since then, we've seen an avalanche of technology. It's uncontrollable. And, when we talk about artificial intelligence, and we think about, you mentioned narcissism, and people will eventually become aware of this by the grace of God. But outside of that, what do you think needs to happen to rein these technologies in so that they are not damaging the culture?
The government has to take control. Every time you have a new technology, you have an unprecedented situation. So in the 19th century, the new technology was railroads. And the railroads, when they first got started, you can read The Octopus, a novel by Frank Norris about this. They're going to come to you. You're a farmer. You got goods you need to ship. And they're going to say, we're going to charge whatever the market can bear. And you have one choice. It's the only railroad, and you got to pay. Well, no, you can't do that. You can't do that. You are a utility. Your invention has to be subordinated to the common good. That's exactly what's happening. And the institution that does this is government. Now, we have been wrecked in many ways intellectually by libertarianism, which is basically, oh, you're free to do anything. No, you're free to buy drugs and buy pornography or whatever it is, because that's what the rich and powerful want you to do to stay docile. That's an illusion. And we've been intellectually crippled by this libertarian illusion. We need government to represent the people. And that's why this DeSantis thing is so important, okay? Because Disney was just drunk with power. I said this 5 years ago. I don't know whether Governor DeSantis is listening to my videos, but I said exactly the same thing 5 years ago about Mike Pence in Indiana. He passes the Religious Freedom Restoration Act in Indiana, and Mark Benioff shows up. Who is Mark Benioff? He's the head of Salesforce. He lives in San Francisco. He shows up in Indianapolis and says, you've got to change your law. Now, if Pence were intelligent, he would have said, Mr. Benioff, which part of Indiana do you come from? Oh, you're from San Francisco. Well, who gave you the right to change the laws of the state of Indiana? This is exactly what Ron DeSantis is doing with Disney and the people in Burbank.
You know, it's very interesting to me because we were just talking in the last segment about the movement of having these drag queen story times for children and these satanic clubs at elementary schools and middle schools all across America. Louisiana had one, and Fort Worth in Texas had a drag queen show. And these things are becoming more and more popular. And we have this natural aversion as quote unquote conservatives to, we don't get involved. Government shouldn't be involved. And why is that not a proper look at it? And how is it not communism, as people would accuse it of being?
What, you mean the government representing the people? That's communism? No, that's the opposite of communism. This shows you the bankruptcy of the big media. They immediately started attacking DeSantis because they knew, let's face it, they're all paid to do the bidding of the rich and the powerful. Someone yanked this lady's chain and she wrote an article calling DeSantis a communist. This is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. This is not communism. Communism was a small group of people. The Bolsheviks took over an entire country and ran it basically according to their principles. This is grassroots democracy. This is exactly what happened in Virginia. Okay, this was the basic culture wars grassroots, where the lady parents come to a PTA meeting and they say, wait a minute, well, let me read you what is being read to my children. And she starts reading this basically pedophilic pornography. And the head of the school board says, no, don't read that. You're breaking the law. Well, wait a minute. Why is it being read to my children? And so that led to an uprising, and then the stupid Democratic governor of Virginia said parents have no rights when it comes to determining what goes on in their schools, which was an honest statement. I'm sure he believed that, but it got him diselected. The Republicans jumped on that. Now, let's hope that they follow through on this, but there is a widespread grassroots uprising against something that is patently either morally repugnant or totally absurd. And I'm talking about the homosexual transgender agenda. Nobody wants this. I mean, are you kidding me? Well, the minority that wants this is so small that they're going to be swept away if we have representative government.
We're down to just a minute and a half now with E. Michael Jones. But one thing that you're talking about that kind of comes to my mind is the role of states versus the federal government. To be frank, I would be very concerned if the federal government was in charge of Twitter or Facebook or whatever. Already we're seeing how they protect the censorship that goes on those platforms. Even the Republicans have done nothing to push back, not removing the Title 230 protections that they have, versus states that are taking action right now. Wouldn't you want to see the states play a key role in that versus the federal government? You got about 60 seconds.
Yeah, this is the Catholic principle of subsidiarity. The states have been destroyed by this federal overreach, and now we're seeing the cunning of reason. The state power is coming back across the country. This is a good thing. It's a healthy reaction.
Yeah, for sure. We'll have to have you back to have a greater conversation about that. I think that could go on for another hour or so, but we're basically out of time now. Dr. E. Michael Jones has been our guest. It's been good to have you back. Praise be to God. You're on fire. How can people follow you? What's the best place to go?
Go to culturewars.com. All my books, Libido Dominandi, you mentioned it. It's available at culturewars.com. Logos Rising, available at culturewars.com.
And check out our playlist on the Catholic Drive Time channel for our conversations previously with E. Michael Jones. We had a great conversation about the French Revolution on our channel there, so check that out. But Dr. E. Michael Jones, God bless you. God love you. Have a great day, sir.
Thank you.
All right, that's going to do it for hour number 1 of Catholic Drive Time. Praise be to God. Thank you all for joining us.